Welcome back to Ghost Pirate Entertainment. I'm your host, Kanan Becker, and today we talk about 10 more horror movies that I highly recommend. And with that, let's get to the list. The Monkey is a 2025 comedy horror movie, written and directed by Osgood Perkins, and based on the 1980 short story by Stephen King. It stars Theo James, Tatiana Maslany, and Christian Convery. When twin brothers find their father's old monkey toy in the attic, a series of gruesome deaths begin, so the siblings decide to throw away the toy and move on with their lives.
Hello, brother. Bill, the monkey that likes killing our family. It's back.
So at the time of recording this just came out today in theaters. I saw it yesterday, and I had such a great time with this, and I know a lot of you will as well. However, this is very much a movie that is a certain type of taste, a certain sensibility, and certain type of comedy that'll resonate with only certain people. Because I was in a theater pretty much with a packed house, and I swear I was the only one laughing. It was such a strange, uncomfortable feeling because I was dying with laughter. I thought this movie was so funny. It's gory, it's campy, it's silly in a way without losing this dark edge, this morose, macabre kind of edge that it has. And even though it's a comedy, you could still really feel the style structure and sensibilities that Osgood Perkins has. He just has this way about his films, and it's on display in this, but in this strange comedic type of way. And it's off-putting, at the same time it's enjoyable and entertaining. But this is a big warning for anybody going to see this. I'm telling you right now, there is as good of a chance that you'll hate this and not get it at all and come away saying it's stupid as there is you coming away saying that's a classic, that's an instant cult classic, one of my favorite movies I've seen in a while. You know, one of those kind of situations. And I think I'm closer to the latter camp because I really do feel like there is this timeless thing about this movie that for those of us that really get the sense of humor and enjoy that gory, macabre style of silliness and off-puttingness that this has, I think it's one that we'll forever be talking about. But I just wanted to make everybody aware of that before you go spend a bunch of money to see this. You might want to wait to rent it if it's something where you're not generally a fan of macabre, gory, weird sense of humor. But if that does sound up your alley, this is one that I highly recommend. Heart Eyes is a 2025 rom-com slasher, directed by Josh Rubin and written by Philip Murphy and Christopher Landon. It stars Olivia Holt, Mason Gooding, and Devon Sawa. For the past several years, the Heart Eyes killer has been wreaking havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. And on this Valentine's Day, no couple is safe.
For the past 2 years, a masked maniac known as the Heart Eyes Killer has stalked,
hunted,
and brutally slain couples on Valentine's Day.
So here's another one that currently is in theaters. I'm sure it'll be streaming within the next couple weeks. And it's one that, yeah, it is on Valentine's Day. It is a Valentine's Day slasher, but I feel like it's one you can watch at any time and still have an absolute blast with it. It's really interesting because I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that's exactly like this, because it is as much of a rom-com, silly love story, meet cute kind of thing as it is a slasher, because it does have a sweet couple, likable characters, this couple that you want to see get together. But at the same time, it is a vicious slasher. It gets really gory, really brutal, with imaginative kills, but it's also one that you really can't take serious because it's just like The Monkey. If you go into this expecting to be scared or for or something serious, you'll probably be disappointed, because this is not a slasher first with a little bit of comedy in it like a Scream. This is just as much of a rom-com as it is a slasher. And so I think if you are aware of that going in and understand what you're getting in for, just like with The Monkey, there's a much better chance of you coming away being entertained and having a good time with it. But I've heard a number of people that have come away disappointed with this, you know, saying that it's not scary, it's not whatever, because of them expecting a slasher that's scary and intense, and instead coming away with just as much, like I said, a rom-com as it is a slasher. So it's just something that, once again, you need to be aware of. But I had an absolute great time with this. I enjoyed everything about it. I really understood what they were going for and appreciated that, and just had a great time with it. So once again, if that sounds like something that you would enjoy, you definitely need to see this one.
There was just a spark.
Companion is a 2025 romantic psychological thriller, written and directed by Drew Hancock and produced by Zach Crager. It stars Sophie Thatcher, Jack Quaid, and Lucas Gage. A billionaire's death sets off a chain of events for Iris and her friends during a weekend trip to his lakeside house. This is another really new one. It did just drop streaming. It's still $19.99 at the time of recording this, but I'm sure if you give it a couple more weeks, it'll drop down to a much more affordable price. But it's one that I think might even still be in a couple theaters. But you need to know as little as possible, I think, to fully get the enjoyment from this movie. But at this point, the chances of you not having some of the elements of this spoiled are probably pretty low. I think most people at this point know a lot of what this is, but I'm not going to spoil it here, because I'm hoping that there's still some of you out there that have not had anything spoiled about this movie. But I think it's so much fun. Great cast. They do a great job. The characters are well written. It's intelligently put together. It's fun. It's another one that is not really scary. It's much more of a thriller than it is horror. It's not exactly a comedy, though. It is kind of lighthearted, but not exactly a comedy. It's more of this just strange, weird, a bit sci-fi thriller kind of movie. But it's pretty fast-paced with action. There's a lot of craziness that happens. But the real stars of the show here, the thing to really see, is the interactions between Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid. They're just phenomenal. They're big-time up-and-comers right now, and they're in so many different movies. But they really sell it here. They're a great couple and just fun to watch. Their banter and back and forth is just fantastic. But this is another fun one that's definitely worth adding to your list. The Cursed, or also known as 8 for Silver, is a 2021 gothic horror movie, written and directed by Sean Ellis. It stars Boyd Holbrook, Kelly Riley, and Roxanne Duran. In 19th century France, a man arrives at a remote country village to investigate an attack by a wild animal. However, he soon discovers a much deeper, more sinister force that has the townspeople in its grip.
There's a manor house. They've sent for me regarding their son who's gone missing. It may be connected to what you've been looking for.
This is a truly special movie, and recently, with a lot of us being so disappointed by Wolfman, this movie just kept popping to mind, because as far as werewolf type of movies, this is the best one we've had in a long time. Now, it's not exactly a traditional type of werewolf movie, and I feel like that's some of what has kept this one from really blowing up. But it is inspired by a French story that supposedly took place where there was a werewolf that was attacking this rural area in France and killed over 100 people. But it just takes that story and it expands upon that and adds more to it and more layers. But it's so interesting the way this is done because there's supernatural elements, there's creature elements, there's folk elements, and all this gothiciness. There's just so many different things that happen in this that just make it a really fun horror movie. And I've been raving about this movie since I saw it in theaters back in 2021. And it always bums me out how under the radar this movie is. But every time I mention it in a video, there's at least a couple of you that message me saying, man, I never heard of that movie. Thank you so much for recommending it. I loved it. And so that's why I just keep promoting it on this channel, because I know there's still more people that haven't seen this that will appreciate it and enjoy it like I do. So if you're looking for an entertaining creature feature, this is a fantastic pick.
Someone broke in and taped us while we slept.
Lost Highway is a 1997 neo-noir thriller, co-written and directed by David Lynch. It stars Bill Pullman, Patricia Arquette, and Balthazar Getty. Anonymous videotapes warn of a musician's murder conviction, and a gangster's girlfriend leads a mechanic astray.
I like to remember things my own way, how I remembered them, not necessarily the way they happened.
So I've been on a David Lynch kick ever since he passed away last month, and this is another one that I went and I watched, even though I think I'd seen it way back when it was on VHS, but I once again didn't remember much of anything about it. And it's funny because I thought I did, and then I started watching it and I was like, okay, this is not the movie I was thinking of. But once again, it's weird, it's uncomfortable, it's bizarre, it's very David Lynch, and that's only gonna work for a certain audience. It's not for everyone. A lot of people I've seen, every time I mention a David Lynch movie, talk about how he's pretentious and he thinks he's smarter than The Room, and I don't think that's it at all. I think David Lynch is just a surrealist, an abstract type of artist who made movies. Because it isn't that there's some crazy meanings always that you need to get. It's not as simple as that. When you're an abstract expressionist, like I am, and you make paintings of that, it's more about a feeling than it is a point A to B kind of story. And that's what makes his stuff kind of complex, because it doesn't resonate for everyone. And I think it's because a lot of people are expecting to watch a movie that's like most movies, where it's a story and it has a beginning, middle, and end. And with Lynch, it isn't always that way, because it's more about, like I said, the way it feels, the way it makes you feel, the ride, the weird, strange quality of the dialogue and pacing and lighting and all those things should have an effect on you and make you feel something. And that's not to say there's not a story. There is generally a story in his stuff, and you can follow it to a certain extent. It's just a not normal kind of story, because so much of the way it's supposed to make you feel is really important. And it's especially more important than where you necessarily end up, is the ride of how you get there. But the cast is fantastic here, and they really get the assignment. They really pull off the David Lynch sensibility, the way they're directed, the emotion kind of, everybody's at this moot emotion level. Nobody goes too high or low, and that's kind of a signature of the directing style of David Lynch, and they all get that assignment and do a great job of it. But it's so mysterious and moody. There's a lot of atmosphere and creepiness in this one. I think it probably is his creepiest. Like I said, Inland Empire had probably his scariest moments as far as a movie goes. This one, I think, has an overall creepier, on the edge of your seat feel of any of his stuff that I've seen. And I still haven't finished going through his entire catalog of films. So, you know, one of these days, maybe I'll do a video of ranking all of his movies or something like that, if you guys think that would be fun. But I do think at this point, of the things that I've rewatched of his, this is probably the movie I enjoyed the most. But if you're a fan of artsy, neo-noir, slow burn movies, this is one that you absolutely have to see.
You have to listen to me.
Okay, I'm listening. Sweetheart, let me handle it.
The Boogeyman is a 2023 supernatural horror movie, directed by Rob Savage and based on the 1973 short story by Stephen King. It stars Sophie Thatcher, Chris Messina, and Vivian Leigh Blair. Still reeling from the tragic death of their mother, a teenage girl and her younger sister find themselves plagued by a sadistic presence in their house.
JD, there's something in my room. You believe me, don't you?
Now, I'm not gonna say that this is a groundbreaking movie or something along those lines, because I don't think that it is. However, I do think this movie's gotten a bad rap and never really got a fair shake when it came out in theaters. And I don't know exactly why that is, because it's been kind of shoved aside like a lot of these other generic horror movies that we've had over the last few years, like the Blumhouse ones, especially the ones from Blumhouse last year. I don't feel like this is fast food horror. I feel like there's more to it. There's more meat on the bones than that. Yes, it's PG-13, so it doesn't have the gore, it doesn't have that edge that an R rating would have given it. However, I think the family dynamic, and especially the performance from Sophie Thatcher in this and her little sister, is really, really good and heartbreaking at times. And I feel like there's some real emotions that come across, and the way it's done, the way it's shot. Like I said, it's not a perfect movie, but there's a lot of unique, creative elements that are done in this. Stuff to do with the lighting and the design of the creature, presence element, the way it looks, the way it's presenting itself. I think there's definitely entertainment here on a much better level than the way this movie's been treated. But it's available on Tubi for free now. So if you've heard nothing really great about this, and so you've skipped it over the last couple years, now's a great time to check it out while it's free on Tubi. High Life is a 2018 sci-fi horror movie, co-written and directed by Claire Denis and her English language debut. It stars Robert Pattinson, Juliette Binoche, and Mia Goth. A father and his daughter struggle to survive in deep space where they live in isolation.
Trash. Refuse that didn't fit into the system. Until someone had the bright idea of recycling us to serve science.
This is honestly one of my absolute favorite A24 movies. It's very artsy, it's very slow burn, but it's gorgeously shot. It's full of so many different layers of emotion. There's so many different things going on. The way it's edited together to give you different layers of the story through flashbacks and different things, it just really comes across. And by the end, I was so deep in this and cared so much for the different characters. And there is a tragicness to this. There is very much a sadness to this, but it's also this beautiful way of looking at life and death and everything in between that I didn't feel depressed or anything by it by the end. And this is one of the movies that made me realize, hey, Robert Pattinson is definitely much more than this guy from Twilight, because he is incredible in this. It's also fun seeing Mia Goth in this before she was quite as big of a star. This is a couple years before she really started to blossom and her stars started to shine with the X trilogy and things like that. But she's so full of energy and interesting and compelling in the way that she does this role, like she always is. So if you're usually a fan of A24, and especially the art house, slow burn, creative kind of films that they put out, and you've yet to see this, you need to do yourself a favor and make this the next thing that you watch. Never Let Go is a 2024 survival horror thriller. Directed by Alexandra Aja, it stars Halle Berry, Percy Daggs IV, and Anthony B. Jenkins. A family that has been haunted by an evil spirit for years has their safety and surroundings questioned when one of the children begins to doubt if the evil is real.
But the evil out there is clever. One touch without a robot is all it takes.
I was surprised last year by this movie because this just kind of came and went. Nobody really talked about it. And I do get it. It isn't a movie that is going to make the best of the year list. It wasn't anything like that. But there's a lot more here than I think it got credit for. For one, it went a lot harder than I expected. Got a lot more dark and demented and disturbing than I thought it would. Because on the surface, it just feels like it's gonna be another, supernatural horror movie. But because one, Halle Berry's in it and gives, everything she's got in this role, just like she does in everything she does. But then on top of that, the storytelling, the way it's put together, and the performances from the two brothers, it really elevates this to a much more deeper, more powerful, more compassionate and emotional movie than I expected. For a movie that's completely flown under the radar, especially the fact that it has Halle Berry in it and yet still nobody's talking about it, I think this movie is definitely one that's worth your time. Because like I said, it gets pretty twisted and uncomfortable and definitely a lot more dark and gritty than I ever expected. So if you have yet to see this and you're looking for something new to watch, it's definitely worth renting for a few bucks. The Abyss is a 1989 sci-fi thriller, written and directed by James Cameron. It stars Ed Harris, Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and Michael Biehn. A civilian diving team is enlisted to search for a lost nuclear submarine and faces danger while encountering an alien aquatic species.
There is something down there. Something not us. Not human.
So this is a real classic, and in a lot of ways it's kind of been forgotten. You just don't hear it talked about that much. And even though I wouldn't say this is a horror movie by any means, I think it's a lot more of a thriller and has a lot more edge and gets under your skin than I think a lot of people remember. Because nothing makes me more uncomfortable than the unknown, and especially when it comes to space or the ocean and those dark crevices and the underwater, things that could live there that we don't know about. Because that's what's so creepy and disturbing about cosmic horror, is that unknown element, the things that are beyond us. And this movie lives in that space. Now, it does take a more lighter tone with that and doesn't quite go as dark and demented with that as like maybe a movie like The Thing, but I do think there is still a lot of that there, and more than I think a lot of people remember. I mean, just the simple idea of being underwater that far under the ocean, and even just the littlest fish brushing into me is gonna freak me out, because there is no fiction horror movies that scare me anymore. But what does scare me is the real stuff, the stuff that's out there that I can't explain and I might have a brush with. That idea is what really freaks me out still. And I think this movie lives in that space. But beyond that, it's James Cameron, so it's extremely well directed. The story's fantastic. Everybody, the whole cast is just great in this. Everything about this is well put together. It's cutting edge special effects and CGI stuff that just hadn't been done prior to this movie. So on every level, this is a fantastic movie. And even though it's not exactly horror, if it's been a while since you've seen this, or if you've never seen this, I think you definitely should give this a look.
They're Earth's new apex predators, and more prey.
Elevation is a 2024 post-apocalyptic horror movie. Directed by George Nolfi, it stars Anthony Mackie, Marina Baccarin, and Maddie Hassan. A single father and two women venture from the safety of their homes to face monstrous creatures to save the life of a young boy.
Once you cross that line, they'll be there waiting for you.
I know.
So this is a pretty small movie and one that really flew under the radar, but I think it's entertaining, and especially if you're a fan of a creature feature, it's a fun one. It's not one to take too serious. It doesn't have a super deep story. It's a real kind of basic idea, but it has fun creatures and there's suspense and it has some unique twists and turns to it and little wrinkles on something like A Quiet Place. This is kind of in that world but does things differently. There's a different MO, so to speak, to these creatures in this. But I do think it's cool the way that it does it. And I really think Anthony Mackie, just like everything that he's in, he goes all in and he gives a hell of a performance in this. Very emotional and powerful, even though the movie around him isn't quite to the same level he's at. He's still definitely worth seeing in this movie. But it's got a lot of action, it's over the top, it's exciting, it gets pretty intense, and it's a lot of fun, especially if you don't overthink it or take it too serious. But I think it's a perfect pick for this Saturday night. So do yourself a favor this weekend, pick one of the movies off of this list, grab your popcorn and your candy, and enjoy! And I want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you'd like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or you can become a channel member and help support the channel that way by going and clicking on that join button down there. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about my 10 favorite horror movies of all time. And I'll see you guys next time.